4. The Balgroth roared again, and this time the sound was much closer. Gryph helped Overham to his feet as several trees crashed to the ground. The sounds of other beasts joined the Balgroth's horrid chorus, and Gryph knew if they didn't leave now, they'd be surrounded. "Time to go," Gryph said. "It must have heard our fight with the wolves," Wick said, and kicked one of the dead beasts. Zeg jumped down and did the same, moving from one corpse to another, kicking them as he passed. He walked close to Gryph and kicked the soul-bound wolf. The tamed creature growled, but Gryph held it in check. Gryph stared down at Zeg. "Cut that out." The imp tossed a rude gesture towards Gryph's way, showing him exactly what he thought of him, and Gryph made a mental note to watch his language around the infernal pest. "It's like being around a child," Gryph thought. "An obnoxious spawn of Satan child, but still a child." The Balgroth's head poked above the closest copse of trees and spied the group. It roared and ran towards them. Its strides were much longer than Gryph's, but its size and lumbering clumsiness forced it to smash through or bounce off of trees. "Run!" Gryph yelled, and all his companions sprinted away from the corrupted beast. Branches whipped at Gryph's face, leaving tiny wounds that did little damage but seriously irritated him. As they ran, Gryph saw blurs of motion from the right and the left. He didn't get a clear view, but they were larger than the other wolves they'd slain. They crested several hills, crossed a small stream, and finally emerged into a clearing. Had Gryph not been running for his life, the ruins that surrounded them would have wowed him. Crumbling walls and fallen remnants of 2 large towers lay before them. Gryph had seen enough ruined castles during his youthful travels in Europe to recognize that this structure had once been a mighty fortress. Vines and moss covered the scattered stones, suggesting that whatever had destroyed this once mighty defensive edifice had happened a long time ago. "I wish that made me feel better," Gryph thought. He weaved through several downed bulwarks. Behind them, the snarls and roars of a variety of beasts were getting closer. "We need to find a defensive position," Gryph sent through the group's mental link. "Ahead and to the left," Overham sent. Gryph turned that way without looking, trusting Overham's instincts. As he got closer, he realized that his trust in the Zaidai had been well placed. Overham had spotted a ruined tower. Its rounded walls were mostly intact, at least at the back, where a crescent moon of ivy-covered wall would provide excellent protection. Gryph got closer and skirted between a pair of stone walls he imagined must have once been part of the tower's internal support. They provided some protection and would force most of their pursuers into a bottleneck. Gryph sprinted through and turned. He quickly assessed the position of his friends and the enemies bearing down upon them. The Balgroth was loping towards them in a clumsy and ungainly fashion, and remained the greatest danger. But a host of other beasts sprinted in front of the massive creature. Gryph recognized the bears, stags, and wolves, but the others were mysteries. A large leopard creature with tentacle-like appendages sprouting from its shoulders slunk towards them from the right. A disgusting 2-headed flying beast that looked like the product of a psychotic child's imagination flapped overhead. The beast was covered in scales, and the talons on its feet could rend a man from belly to neck. Something else that may have been a shambling mass of trash came toward them from the left. Gryph had no clue what the hell it was, and had no time to use analyze. "Wick, Get behind us and summon Avernerius. Tiff and Ovrum, you're with me. Create a defensive perimeter around Wick until help arrives. Zeg, go high and be my eyes."
"Zeg ain't no ugly haircut elf's servant."
Gryph sighed in annoyance when Tiffila's sweet mental voice chimed in. "Please, Zeg, we need your help."
"Fine. Zeg help, but only for pretty lady. Zeg no help blue-haired midget."
"I really need to find a way to send you back to Bixrithigal," Wick sent.
"Ha ha! No can send Zeg back, but maybe Zeg take you back. Fun be it to hear screams from you."
"Enough," Gryph sent. "We are out of time." Gryph sent mana down his right arm, and it became as heavy as a stone before a 2-foot-long spike of rock flew from his palm and impaled a stag that had lowered its antlers to gore him. Flying Stalactite had been his first offensive spell, and it remained his favorite distance attack. The stag stumbled as the stone split its skull. As it fell, its legs tangled up with a corrupted wolf that was hot on its heels. The wolf stumbled and fell with a crack of bone and a howl. Gryph's wolf leapt over the stag's corpse and tore a ragged chunk from the other wolf's throat, ending its life. On his right, Ovrum unleashed a glowing arrow at the tentacle panther. Just as the arrow was about to take the creature between the eyes, it suddenly stood several feet to the right. "Phase Panther," Ovrum sent. "Are those snakes protruding from its shoulder?" Gryph sent in a panic.
"Yes, Zeg find funny. Very poison is those snakes. Maybe Silverhead Goober should let snakes bite."
Gryph wondered how Zeg knew so much about, well, everything. But his annoyance at the imp's jacked-up sense of humor pushed that thought away. He fired several more flying stalactites into the fray, dropping several more beasts. To his left, Tiffila was battling the 2-headed bird monstrosity. Gryph's analyze skill clicked into gear, and he knew the beast was a vulture harpy. She sent life bolts skyward, but the bird evaded most of them. Then it opened both mouths and screamed. Gryph couldn't see the sound waves that pummeled Tiffila, but he could see the wake they left in the air. Tiffila brought her hands to her ears and her mouth opened. She looked to be screaming, but whatever noise those screams made was drowned out by the foul creature's sonic assault. Gryph stabbed his spear point down into the dirt and grabbed 2 throwing knives from the bandolier at his chest. He pumped mana into his bracers and threw 2 of the knives, using the magnetic properties of the bracers to provide extra oomph to his throws. The thin slivers of metal bore serrated edges that would cause extra bleeding damage. The missiles impacted the flying beast below one of its 2 necks and tore into the scaly flesh. The beast's sonic attack ceased, and both heads reared back in shock and pain. One head turned towards Gryph, and he saw the same dark orange corruption coursing through its eyes. It howled in rage at him and prepared to unleash another sonic attack. But Gryph was far from done. He pushed more power into his bracers and pushed with both hands. Inside the avian monster's body, Gryph felt the serrated knives force deep. The harpy screamed again, but Gryph had no sympathy and pulled and twisted his hands back towards him. The metal blades twisted again, forcing their way through more flesh, ripping and shredding as they tore free of the creature's body, tearing away one of the wings as they did. The harpy squealed in agony as it spun and fell. It hit the ground with a wet thud, and Gryph smiled. He would have cheered, save for the thundering stomp of the Balgroth's foot as it came down hard on one of the harpy's skulls. The avian beast twitched and died. The Balgroth swung a fist at Gryph, who jumped back a second too late. The meaty fist, the size of a bowling ball, smashed into his breastplate with sternum-cracking force. The crushing blow knocked the air from Gryph's lungs, and he wheezed in agony. His health dropped by 25%, and, worse yet, he was prone on his back, suffering from a debuff. Debuff added, you have been stunned. 50% penalty to movement speed for 10 seconds. Confusion for 10 seconds. Gryph coughed as his entire world turned to pain. He knew he should do something, should be worried about something, but for the life of him, he couldn't remember what that was. Then he was lifted off his feet, and he had his answer. Oh, yeah, Balgroth, Gryph thought with an odd detachment. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew he should care more about the massive beast and the decreasing distance between him and its rancid maw of jagged ichor-covered teeth. He grinned stupidly, and a wolf's jaws clamped down hard on the Balgroth's arm. The meaty fist holding Gryph released, and he fell to the ground in a heap. He looked up to see a wolf, his wolf, the wolf he had yet to name, digging its jaws into the Balgroth's arm. The stupid reptilian troll was spinning and flailing with its other arm, trying to detach the fierce wolf. It was only mildly successful, as the agile wolf used its claws to find purchase in the Balgroth's back and side. Gryph stumbled to his feet and saw Tifila do the same. Whatever sonic attack had devastated the gnome woman abated. She looked at him with concern, and Gryph gave her a foolish thumbs up. She clearly did not buy his assurances, because a scowl crossed her face and she ran towards him, golden light infusing her hands. Gryph fell to his knees and resisted the urge to vomit. But then Tifila was there, and the warm glow of her healing magic surrounded his body. He instantly felt better as the debuffs faded and his health crept back up to 90%. She tugged on his arm. "You need to get up!" she yelled, rather more loudly than was necessary. Gryph realized she was still suffering from the sonic attack the harpy had hit her with. He nodded and stood, shaking his head to clear the last of the debuffs. A high-pitched yelp caught his ears, and his eyes snapped up barely in time to push Tifila out of the way of a flying wolf. She sprawled safely, if painfully, to the ground. Gryph wasn't so lucky, as the full weight of his soul-bound pet slammed him in the chest. He crashed to the ground again, and his eyes met those of the wolf. Its breath was ragged, and hot blood leaked from its side. With a shudder, the wolf died. Gryph was pissed. He'd always been a dog guy, and while this wolf would happily have torn his throat out had it not been soul-bound, he still felt the loss of the beast. After all, it had saved his life. Gryph stood in time to see the Balgroth's fist flying towards him again. He dove and rolled aside, reaching out to snatch his spear from the ground as he came back to his feet. Gryph thrust upwards with the spear, catching the Balgroth in the side. Black blood flowed from the wound, and the Balgroth swung again. Gryph dodged, and the beast exposed his back, but Gryph lost his grip on the spear. "I need space." He climbed onto the beast's back and activated Push Off. Gryph somersaulted head over heels and landed gracefully 5 feet away. The perk also pushed the Balgroth off balance long enough for Gryph to recover. There was only one problem. His spear lay lost between the legs of the Balgroth. Gryph pumped mana into his bracers and tried to pull the spear to him, but the dumb creature had stepped on the spear as it stumbled back to its feet. It was momentarily disorientated, and Gryph chanced to look around. Ovrim was battling the Phase Panther and faring none too well. He sent a message to Tifila to go aid the warrior monk. He saw dozens of other corrupted beasts waiting just out of reach. What are they waiting for? Gryph wondered. Wick, now would be a good time, he sent to the Thonic summoner. Almost there, came the strained reply. The Balgroth had recovered and turned towards Gryph, throwing its arms wide and roaring. Shit, Gryph thought as he stumbled backwards. He reached for the throwing knives, but remembered their lack of effectiveness against the other Balgroth. His mind cycled through all of his new powers, and he held his left arm up, palm out. Mana surged down his arm like a swollen river right after a torrential rain. A jet of water flew from his palm, smacking the bewildered beast in the face. It was the first time he'd cast Water Blast, and while it staggered the Balgroth, he suspected that was due more to surprise than actual damage. He knew the beast would soon recover, especially with its irritating ability to regenerate. Suddenly, the jet of water surged sideways, digging a furrow into the ground and sending a sheet of muddy water onto the pack of nearby wolves. The water spun upwards and cascaded down, drenching Gryph. He quickly cut the mana feed to his out-of-control spell and added waterlogged to his list of fashion crimes. The Balgroth rushed forward, but it slipped in the muck and flopped onto its back, buying Gryph the time to complain viciously. What the hell was that?
Ha!
Zeg's laugh came through their mental bond.
Dumb Silverhead have magic twisted all back and forth.
What do you mean? Gryph asked.
What mean? You don't have eyes? Big water splash turn and go splooge all over. Make Silverhair look much more nicer. And very much funny.
I understand what happened. I was asking why, Gryph raged.
Oh, Zeg no. Wait, Zeg might know. Just no wanna tell. Zeg know much lots of stuff.
I have seen something akin to the phenomena, Ovrim sent, his even tone bringing a bit of calm to Gryph's frayed nerves. In the Outer Realms, there are areas known as bleed zones, where magic runs amok, often with unpredictable results. You think that's what happened here? Gryph sent. They are corrupted by the bleed? Doubtful, the Zidai responded. I have never heard of a bleed zone on the surface of a world, but it seems that whatever force has corrupted these creatures also messes with magic's normal behavior, and it seems to have a sense of humor. A desperate idea came to Gryph. Stand back. I'm gonna try something here. He thrust his hand out, summoning more mana, and a mini tornado formed around his arm. As the spell Halo of Air left his hand, he sent a silent prayer to the universe. This better work, Gryph thought. Halo of Air had saved his ass on many occasions. It provided a sphere of fresh air centered about one's head. This would be the first time Gryph had ever cast it on anyone or anything other than himself. Usually the spell would expel liquids, foreign gases, or anything else unwanted, and provide the user with breathable air. This time, Gryph hoped for another outcome. The spell appeared as a slight shimmer around the Balgroth's head, and for a moment the moronic creature seemed happy with the fresh smell. After a few moments, however, the slow inrush of air built to hurricane force. The Balgroth squinted, and its mouth expanded like a dog hanging its head out the side of a fast-moving car, all teeth and slobber. As the air pressure increased, bits of dirt and twigs got sucked in, soon followed by rocks, clumps of grass, and a small bird sucked from a nearby tree. The rush of air became so fierce that it tugged at Gryph, slowly drawing him towards the monstrosity. Gryph started to panic, but then the spell reversed itself, expelling all the air inside the halo. The stupid creature took several seconds to process that its head was now surrounded by a vacuum, and then the beast began to suffocate. It grasped feebly at its head, trying and failing to swat away the porous halo. It stumbled back and forth, smashing into trees and crumbling walls alike. Several times it punched itself fully in the face, desperate to dislodge the invisible grip of doom that had it. Gryph watched as the vacuum sucked the air from the Balgroth's lungs. Gryph smiled. "I cannot believe this is working," he sent. Then the dark orange corruption leaked from the Balgroth's eyes, nose, and mouth, and it crept up the inside of the invisible sphere like an infection. Gryph saw his magic blink and falter, and the spell failed completely. The Balgroth fell to its knees as it sucked in heavy gasps of air. After a moment, it looked up, eyes filled not just with corrupted rage, but with awareness. "Nice try," the Balgroth said in an otherworldly voice, and it stood and smiled at Gryph with more keen intelligence than the beast could possibly possess. Laughter that sounded like the slow movement of tectonic plates rose in the wood, and a cold tingle of fear trickled down Gryph's back.